Hi there once again, and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial. And this is the first in a two-part series on creating a working umbrella. In order to achieve this, we're going to be using a combination of Expresso, an IK rig, PoseMorph, and the wonderful particle-based cloth. And you can see the results are truly superb. In this first tutorial, we're going to be focused on creating the actual framework for the umbrella. So what you see here. And in order to achieve this, we are going to be using a combination of Expresso, IK, and a PoseMorph. And we'll also employ some user data. That's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. We'll start by bringing in a cube. And I'm going to work on the handle part first because I think that's the most sensible thing to do. Now, in our size X, we'll make this 2, 80 in the Y, so it's about 800 millimeters in length, which is about right, and 2 for the Z. We won't worry about anything else, and we won't worry about filleting. So if we hit O for object, we can see what we've got. Now at the moment, we've got something which is completely square. We don't want that. So holding down my Option key, I'm going to drop this into a subdivision. Just put it in there. With the cube selected, hit C to make it editable so that we've got a geometric object, and then we can switch to our edge mode and UL, select these top edges, hold down the point key and click and drag to tighten the subdivision surface at the top, and we need to do the same at the bottom. So let's just go into there, select this row of, or this loop of edges, hold down the point key again, click and drag, and we've got that to that stage. The next thing to do is switch to polygon mode, and we'll select this bottom polygon here, hit I for inner, and minus, I think we'll go say 0.2, just 2 millimeters, and then D for extrude, and we'll extrude, I think we'll go 1 centimeter for that, and then once again I for inner, and this time it will be 0.2, and that creates like a ring around where the handle is going to be, and you do get those on umbrellas. The next thing to do is hit M and X so that we go into matrix extrude. Now let's see what we've got. Our steps are currently set to 19. That may well be enough. Our move in the Z axis here, we've got 1 centimeter, and that should be fine. And a rotation value of 10 degrees here, and everything else set to 100. Now this should work perfectly well. So if we hit apply, and let's just see what we've got, we can see that we've created a handle. It's slightly rounded here, and that's okay. I mean, we could have finished with 18, but I think the extra one, it just adds a bit more character to the handle. To finish it off, I'll hit D for extrude once again, and this time I'll go 2 centimeters and hit apply. And that finishes off the handle part. Now, just the final finishing touch, we've got our polygon selected here. If we just hold down our point key again and just relax, just click and drag to relax the ending of our subdivision surface there, that gives us pretty much the perfect handle. Okay, so looking nice so far, and that's all looking good. I'm liking that. Okay, fantastic. So the next pieces that we need to worry about will be the top part and also the slide, which we'll use to open and close our umbrella. And that's our next port of call. We'll start with the top piece, and the first thing I'm going to do is bring a null into the scene, and I'll just move it up to somewhere up here, and we can zoom a little closer and see where we are. Okay, looking good. I'll bring in a cube. Now this cube needs to be quite small, so it needs to be 5, or rather 0.5, just 5 millimeters. So 0.5 centimeters in the X will make it 0.2, or rather 0.5 again in the Y, and 0.2 in the Z. So it's a very, very small cube. We'll just go down to where it is and get a hold of it and bring it up to somewhere here. Just zoom back in. And let's have a look and see where we are. Okay. So we can place it, and this is all by eye, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. We'll just place it somewhere over here for a second, and we'll also drop it into our null as well, because we're going to actually be duplicating these in a circular motion when we've got everything sorted out. We'll make this cube editable by hitting C. Once again, we're still in our polygon mode, which is fine, and we can select this end polygon here. Hit D for extrude and go 0.2, just to give it a little bit of an edge. That's fantastic. The next thing we need to do is make a hole through here. So we can, using our brush selection, we can just turn off visible only for now. Select it so that we've got these two. Hit I, and this time we'll go 0.1, and that will give us the perfect size for our hole. If we just hit O so that we can see what we're doing, just zoom out a little bit, it's because the item's so small. We can change our display to lines, hit M and B for bridge, and then bridge through there. Go back to Garrett shading lines, and now we can see that we've got the hole through our cube. The next thing to do, I'm just going to switch to my top view, so F2, hit O for object once again, and let's see where we are. Right, so at the moment we are literally on the Z-axis of our world, or rather our X-axis. There's our X-axis down there, the red line. Now what we want to do is actually move this cube. So with it selected, and we'll go into model mode, and in our coordinates what we need to do is move this along the Z-axis, and we'll go 0.25 just to move it to here, and then we'll make a copy of this cube by command dragging, drop that into here, and this one we'll say minus 0.25 along the Z-axis, and that gives us enough room to put something between the two, which is what we're going to be doing later on. Okay, so we'll switch back to our 3D view, so F1. So we've got our two cubes, or our two little items, set up and ready for the next step. What we need to do is select both of them and connect and delete. So now we've got a single cube, and now we can drop this into a subdivision surface. So hold down the option key and click to drop it in. Select it once again and select edge mode, and then we can think about tidying these up. So UL for loop selection, we'll select all of the inners, all of these inner loops, and we want the outer loops as well, but we'll get the inners sorted out first. So let's just select that one and that one, hold down our point key and click and drag to tighten those up, and then we can think about the rest. So we want this, just swivel round, and we want this one and this one. We can tighten those, and then finally we want the bottom edges, so these here, and repeat the process, and now we've got everything set the way we'd like it to be. Now if you wish to, you can put a bevel deformer on these, you know, entirely up to you if you wish to do that. It's perfectly simple, just hold the option key and drop a bevel in, and it places it in the correct place to make these bevel correctly. We can select our option here, and this will need 2 subdivisions, and it won't need a centimetre. It'll probably be more like 0.1 centimetres, so just a millimetre's worth of beveling if you wish to do that. You know, it's entirely up to you. If you feel that that looks more beautiful, I mean, it's such a tiny object and you're probably never going to see it where it is, but it's entirely up to you. But anyway, I'm not going to bother with it. I'm going to take that away, and I'm just going to leave it like that. But as I say, the option's there if you wish to use it. The next thing to do with our null selected, what we need to do next is duplicate all of these. What I'm going to do first, actually, I'm going to take this out of here, remove this for a minute, and I'm going to duplicate this. And then what we'll do, when we've got them all, we'll connect objects and delete, and then drop them all back into this subdivision surface so that it's treated as one object. So with the null selected, let's go up to our tools, hit duplicate. We want 7 copies, and we want them in a circle, but we don't want our circle to have any radius. It wants to be where it is, and we can just hit apply, and we've got them. Perfect. And there we have it. We've got 8 of these all set up and ready to go, which is good. That's exactly what we want. In our copies here, we can drop in our original null. So we'll drop that in there. And then we can simply select everything here and connect objects and delete. And that just leaves us with a single null, although it isn't a null anymore, of course. It's just a polygon. Well, they're effectively all of these objects together as one object. They're just one polygonal based object. And we can drop that into the subdivision surface, and straight away we get what we want. Fantastic. So we've got it that far. The next thing to do is bring in a cylinder, make it something like 2 in the radius. Might even be a bit too much. We might even be able to make that 1, or possibly a little bit more. We'll see what we can do. 1.6 maybe. Could even go a little bit less than that, 1.5. Yeah, I mean, I think 1.5 is going to do. That will be okay. And then we can work with the height. Let's make this 1 centimetre, and it's not currently in the correct place. What we can do is have a look at our null. Whereabouts is that null? Yeah, the null's in pretty much. It's near enough. Let's just drop that in there and 0 it out in the Y. It'll be close to where it needs to be. And then we can just drag this into position, which is going to be somewhere in the center of our objects here. We can just see with the height segments there, that's about the center, and that looks good. That's in about the right position. Now the next thing to do is basically add a little bit of a fillet on this, maybe, if we wish to. And again, you don't have to. It's entirely up to you, but the one thing I will do is make 30 rotation segments. I think it'll just make it a little bit smoother. I'll just give it 1 height segment, that's fine. And in the caps, as I say, you can put a fillet on it if you think it looks more beautiful, maybe 0.2, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I can leave that on there, that looks okay. But anyway, that's that little part complete. The only thing we need to do now is get a tube and put it beneath the cylinder. So that's the next port of call. So let's grab a hold of a tube. It's a massive tube at the moment. We need it to be an inner radius of, let's go 1.2. See if that's any good. It may not be. Outer radius will make it 1.4. So it's just a bit smaller than that. It could even go smaller than that. I think 1.3. Yeah, I don't know quite whether the inner radius is correct yet, but we can check that in a minute. Let's just make this about 8. I think in the height should be fine. Let's see where we are. Let's just bring this thing up to where it needs to be. Yeah, it's not far off. Let's just check to see what we got on the inner radius. The inner radius is nowhere near correctly, so let's make that slightly bigger. So make it, so look where we are. Inner radius 1.25. Nope, too small. Make it 1. That's better. That's better. I think that'll do. So 1 for that. Just bring that up there. We can make that outer radius a little smaller if we wish to. Let's make it say 1.2. Yeah, I think that's closer to what it needs to be. I think that looks good. It looks in proportion. Yeah, that looks good for my money. And let's just put a little bit of a fillet on it. Let's put a tiny bit. 0.1 is what it's got in there, and I think 0.1 is probably going to be fine. Yeah, I mean, we'll go with that, and I'll just move it slightly higher so that it's just inside the cylinder there, just to finish it off. I mean, I'm not being too particular about the modelling here. You can be more pedantic about it if you wish to, but I'm just doing what I need to, really. Okay, so we've got all of our subdivision surface modeling here. That's ready to go. We've got our tube and we've got our cylinder. So I think the thing to do now is just delete this. If we just bring in another null, place it up at the top somewhere up here. If I just switch to my right hand view and hit O for object, or rather I can't do that, it's just hit H then, and just get a little bit closer, see where we are. Yeah, I mean that null is positioned pretty much where it needs to be. So we can call this top, and we'll just drop all of these into it. And that's our top piece complete, which is great, looks really nice. Now the next thing to do is create the slide piece, and it's a similar sort of setup but with some slight differences, and that's going to be our next port of call. Right, the first thing to do then, let's bring in a null, and we'll place this null somewhere around. Let's have a look, where are we? We'll place it somewhere around here. Okay, that's fine. The next thing to do, I think we'll bring in a tube. And as we did before, we're going to our object tab here. Our inner radius will make 1 and our outer radius 1.5. Our height will make 1, and we'll place this into our null and zero it out. Fabulous, so that's in the correct place for now. What we'll also do, we'll give it a fillet and we'll make it 0.1, and that should do nicely. So that's the first part of our slide made correctly. The next thing to do is actually copy this bottom tube, or this tube from the top. Let's just grab a hold of that, so command drag to copy that, and then we can drop this into place, and that can just go beneath our tube there, and that should work fine. So that's the first two bits of our slide made. The next thing to do, grab a hold of a cube, we'll drop it into the null, zero it out, and then work with its sizes. And again, it needs to be the same dimensions as before, so it's 0.5, 0.5, 0.2, and we'll bring it out along its x-axis, and we can see it there. Hit O for object and just zoom a little bit further out. Again, what we can do is make this editable, so hit C, make it editable. And what we'll do is select the bottom polygon, hit D for extrude, 0.2 is already set up for us, and do that, and that's ready to go. And then what we can do is just move it into position, so it wants to be somewhere around there. If we go into our top view and double check its position compared to what we've got here, we can actually go a little bit further. We can go probably that far, somewhere around there, just to make it so that it just about lines up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's okay, that's all good. Now with our cube here, again, what we can do, select polygon mode, brush selection, and both our front and rear polygons, hit I for inner, and we're set up, so we can just apply, and then D for extrude, and it will be 0.2, and that's fine, so we can just apply that because we want a couple of studs on this one. We don't want this to have a hole through it. Fantastic, so that's ready, and we can then drop this into a subdivision surface, so hold our option key and drop that in there, select it once again, and with our edge mode selected, UL, and we can start working with this. Just go around here, do these, and do that, and we've got it sorted out. And we probably don't even need to worry about the bottom edge this time because we've already set this up and it looks fine. Okay, so we've got that piece done. The next thing to do then, what we'll do is just remove these two from the null, because we want to do the same as we did before and duplicate in a circular motion. So we'll select our null, and in our tools, duplicate, and we know it's already set up, so we can just hit apply and we've done it. Fantastic. So that piece is now complete, and we can just finish things off by dropping our original null into our null copies and selecting everything and deleting. So let's, or rather it's connect and delete, I should say, not selecting everything, connecting everything and deleting. So connect and delete, and we've done that, and we can see that it's perfectly good. And this time we haven't even got the subdivision surface with something in it because we don't need to, it's already set up. So a slightly different technique this time, but it's perfectly good. Okay, great. So our null copies, let's just see where that is. That's in the correct place, so we might as well just use that and call it slide. And then all we've got to do is drop these two in there. And that's our slide piece, and that will now move up and down, and that's fine. That's what we needed to do. Brilliant. So that's done, and that all looks really nice. So moving on from here then, the next stage is to create one of the ribs. We'll create the rib first, and then we'll think about doing the stretchers. So that's the next thing to do. Get another cube, and we'll drop this one this time into this cylinder within our top, and we'll zero out from there. And then we can think about working with the side. We'll just remove it. Work with the size. We want 0.5, 0.5, 0.2. Bring it forward along its x-axis, and if we switch to our front view, I think, and here objects, we should be able to see where it is in relation to the little tag object there. And it wants to be lined up approximately with this edge here, and of course it will be aligning pretty much with this edge here, so we might need to move it just up a little bit until it aligns there. That should, I think, be okay. Let's just hit O for object and zoom out a little bit, see where we are. Yeah, that looks as if it's in the right place. I think that'll work for us. Fantastic. So let's make it editable, and once again we'll select polygon mode, brush selection, front and rear polygons. We shouldn't have anything else selected, I don't think we have. Hit I for inner, apply, D for extrude, apply, and we've got it that far. Option key and click on subdivision surface to drop it into one of those. Select it once again, go into edge mode, UL for loop selection, and we'll start working with our various edges. We've got that one selected. We might as well do the outer edges as well. We just click on those. I know they're being selected. Hold down our full stop key and tighten everything up. And we've got it looking really nice. So that's the first part of our rib set up and ready to go. Now, if we switch back to polygon mode and brush selection once again and select this polygon here, the next thing we need to do is another extrude, so D, but on this occasion we want to go 60 centimeters, so around 600 millimeters in length is what we want. And we also want 10 subdivisions, so we'll do 10 subdivisions and 60 centimeters. Hit apply. We've got something selected that we don't need selected. That's because I should have, with my brush selection, clicked on visible only. Let's just zoom in and do that again. So we just want this polygon. Go back to our extrusion and apply. And this time we're okay. Now at this end, I think if we just select this polygon, we can just rotate around there and have a quick look. Yeah, this end is fine. That all looks really nice. That's good. That's what I want to see there. So that's great. That's looking really nice. And if we go to our F4 for our front view, hit H, we can see our object here, and we can see that it's subdivided. Now we've got to put a stretcher between here and somewhere along this edge here. I think we can go from here to probably this one here. We don't want to go to the middle, I think it's too far, so we'll go the one before the middle. So if I just select that, go back to our 3D view, let's see where we are. Now what we need to do, we've got to put a little tag on here that we can connect the stretcher rail to. So what we'll do, I'll hit KL for loop cut, hold down my shift key, and I'm going to cut through the middle of there, but I'm then going to hit my plus button over here so that we've got 2 cuts. Now, all being well, I should be able to move these into place just by eye. Let's have a look, where are we? If I just UL, sorry, I need to do UL with our edge selection, hold down shift and get both of those. And then if I move them using our scale tool, I should be able to bring them together until we get something that looks like a square polygon here. That's what I'm looking for by eye. Let's have a look at that in our front view. Let's just zoom in a little closer so that we can see where we are. Let's have a look, see what we've got. Change the isosceline editing, I don't want to see that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, something like that. That looks good enough to me. Right, so let's just go back into polygon mode and take a look at what's going on underneath here. Can I select that polygon? Yes, I can. So the cuts have done their job properly. Now, the one thing I do also need to do is actually put a cut through the middle of this. So again, KL for loop selection, and I need to put a cut through there. Hold down my shift key so I get it dead in the center and just click and cut through there. Because ultimately we want to be in points mode and we want to be stitching our cloth to the center points of this object. We'll be doing that a bit later. In fact, we won't even be doing it in this tutorial. It'll be in the second tutorial. So we'll worry about that at a later time. But for now, let's just go back to our polygon mode. Just click on there so that I can rotate around there. And I want to use these 2 polygons. So D for extrude, and let's see how far we need to go. Let's go 0.5, and we only want 1, or rather no subdivisions. We don't want any subdivisions in there. See what we've got. Now let's have a look. That looks pretty good, actually. It looks as if that's square. So I'm going to go with that, and what I'll do is with my brush selection, again, I can take off my visible only, select the front and rear polygons, I for inner, and hit that, and then D for extrude, 0.2, so that I've got a couple of studs on there. Looking really good. Okay, again, edge mode, loop selection, so UL, select these, and I'll do the same around the back. So select these 2, hold down my point key, and just tighten things there. I'm not going to bother to do that here. I think we'll probably get away with it. I think it looks okay. It's you know, it's just one of those things. It's up to you. You can select these 2 and just tighten them. That probably looks a little better. I think it looks quite nice like that. But I'm inclined to kind of leave this. I don't know. Let's have a look, see if we can do anything with that. I don't know whether we can. If we select, yeah, maybe if we just select with brush selection and I just select visible only. If I select here, I can just select that particular polygon. If I go to lines, let's have a look, see where we are. What I want is this one and this one. So if I just select that one there and the one next to it, a little bit fiddly this, but if we can just select the one next to it, that's the one I want. It's a bit awkward doing this actually, but it's got to be those 2. Let's just get closer, see if it makes life easier. It's a bit fiddly, but it's probably worth doing. So we just shift select that one, that's it, just tighten those. Let's see what we've got now. Yeah, I think that'll give us a nice result, definitely. So let's just do it. Let's get this other one done. Select, yeah, it's going to be that one and the other one next to it. Let's just go in there, select that one and shift select that one and draw those together. And if we go back to Gareth shading lines, you can see that we've got quite a nice result there. I think that will work quite nicely for us. Yeah, I mean, that's going to work, isn't it? It looks quite nice. So yeah, so that's our first rib completely sorted out, and that's ready to go. So the next port of call for us is to create the stretcher rail that comes from here to here. A little bit more housekeeping before we continue. I'm just going to bring in another null, drop this null into the top cylinder, zero it out, take it out of there and drop it in here and just call it rib. And that's fine. So that gets our rib grouped, because obviously eventually we're going to need to do another copy around a circle. So that's ready, and we can now think about building our stretcher rail. So let's bring in another cube, drop this one into our slides top tube, zero out, which we haven't done, or have we? Yeah, I think we have. That's okay. And then we can make this 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.2. Moving into position here, hit O for object and just see where it is. Let's just see what's going on. Right, it's not in the right place, but that's okay. We can just move this back. We're going to our front view actually, object, and just see where we are. We're in the correct alignment there. We just need to bring that to here by eye, and that's okay. And then what we need to do again in our Z axis here, we need to say 0.25 to get it into the correct place there. Make a copy, so command drag to copy, and make this one minus 0.25, and they're now in the correct places at the moment. Now the only thing we've got to do, let's have a look, see where we are. If we connect, well, we can. If we make these editable and connect objects and delete, we can now see where they are now. At the moment, their axes are dead in the middle of them, but they're facing along the x-axis. What we need to do in our axis tool here, or axis mode, we just need to rotate this through 90 degrees to there. Okay, come out of that mode, go back to our axis tool there, and we can see that now they're now facing along their z-axis. Now there is a good reason why I want this to be that the case, because ultimately I'm going to make another copy of this, and what I'm going to do is drag it away from these, and I'm just going to rotate that by 180. So if we say 270 degrees, it's now facing our original two here, and that's going to be important. What we're going to do, if we just zoom out and just see where we are, what I need to do is place this over here. But before I do that, I'm going to bring in another null, drop it into my rib here, zero it out, and then just drag it over here, switch to my front view, object, zoom out a little bit, and we can see that it's almost in the correct place. Now we just need to bring it down until it's in the center of here, and we can just zoom in a little bit closer just to see where we are. Now we're going to get this as near as possible, so somewhere there, probably just about there. That will do, I think. That's probably in a good enough position for us. Now that's, we can see it's in the correct plane, and it's exactly where it needs to be. So what we'll call this null, if we just take it out of there, I'm going to call this stretcher. Okay, and it's ready to accommodate both of these. Now what we can do with our second cube here, if we just drop that into the stretcher and zero it out, that's good, but it's not facing in the correct direction, so let's just make that 270. Doesn't really matter because we'll be okay anyway. Now our first cube here, we just need to get aligned correctly, so let's go into our front view, so F4 object, and just zoom out a little bit so that we can see where we are, and we can bring this one into the center of there. I'll just get a little bit closer so that we can make sure that we're just about correct. So let's just bring this in. That will do nicely. I think that'll be okay for that. Now we can do some more work with these. So let's just hit O for objects and just do some more modeling. At the moment they need holes through them, but they also need a little bit more work on these edges here. So if we select our polygon mode, first thing we can do with our brush selection, uncheck visible only, and we'll select our front and rear polygons of these. Hit I for in set, and we'll apply. We'll switch to lines, MB, and make holes through the middle of them. Go back to Garrod shading. So we've got those ready, and all we need to do is select with visible only checked these two. D for extrude, it is 0.2, we'll do that, and then we've got to select these two again. So with our brush selection, if we select this and MB for bridge, we can connect the two. That's what we need to do. We've got to do the same with our other one up here. So we'll select our object, we'll do the same thing. Let's just zoom out a little bit so that we're a little bit further away. Brush selection, visible only checked off, select our front and rear polygons, I for inset, apply that. Once again, go into lines, MB, bridge through there, and once again we can select these rear polygons. So click that back on, select the two of these, D for extrude, select the two polygons once again. So we want this one and this one, MB and bridge between the two of those. Fantastic. Right, so the next thing to do, we've got to drop both of these cubes into subdivision surfaces. So if we select the pair of them, so command select the other one, hold down the option key, drop those into there. They're both in subdivision surfaces now. And then we can start working with them again. So if we select our bottom one, we might as well do this one first. It's the same deal as we did before. Go into edge mode, UL, select the various edges that we need to work with. We need these in here, and these here, and this one. Where are we? To see where we want the other inner edge as well. That one there, and we should be able to do that now. Tighten those up. We need to need to tighten through there if we can as well. We'll do that in a sec. If I just do these first, do that one, tighten that up. Yeah, we should just really tighten through here as well. So let's have a look, see where we are. We can select that edge, select that one, and select that one. Just tighten those through there. Oh, it's not quite right. That's not quite got the right edge. Let's have a look. Sometimes this works really easily and sometimes it just doesn't. I don't know quite why that is. Let's just do it individually. See if I can just select the right edges. I'll go through there. That's more like it, I think. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks as if it's got them. Hasn't quite got that one, but let's just do that one. That's it. I mean, you know, you don't have to be too particular about it, again, because the chances are you won't see it, but for what it is, just get it right. Let's just select this one, object, same thing again. We just got to make this look nice. Let's just do that. In fact, what I'll do this and then come back to you, I think, because I think that'll be the easiest thing to do. You just see me do the other one. Okay, and that's that one finalized and ready to go. Just that last, actually this one, select that edge, that one, and just tighten that. That's fine. Just see if we can tighten that. That's great. Yep, that one's pretty much there. I think maybe one more edge on the inside, just up there, and that's it. And we've got it done. So that's all ready to go and looking nice. Great, so I've got my two end pieces of the stretcher rail ready. The next thing I need to do, let's have a look, see where we are. If I remove that from there, in fact what we can do is just drop this into here, just take away this subdivision surface, connect these objects and delete. Or do we want to do that? No, before I do connect and delete, what I'm going to do first, just select the object, go back into object mode, that's good, or model mode I should say. I'm going to give them both target tags, and I'm going to make them look at each other so that they're looking in the correct way. So this target tag needs to look at this one, and that's done that, and then this one needs to look at this one. And if we check out our object down here, we can see that it's doing the job and it's facing in the correct direction. Or is it? No, it's actually not. What I need to do, let's have a look, let's just switch this off for a minute. What I need to do is zero this out along there, and I need to turn it through 180 degrees. What I need to do is actually turn its axes through 180 degrees. So let's just do that. That's it. Come out of there, and I should be able to switch this back on, and it should work, and it does. Now it's facing in the correct direction. Right, fantastic. So they're now looking at each other, which is exactly what I need them to do. What I can do next is remove both these target tags, and they'll still carry on looking at each other because they've been positioned. And then we can connect objects and delete, and we've got both of them now in the subdivision surface being smoothed, and that's working perfectly. Great, so that's done that. The next thing to do is join them together using the bridge tool again. So if we select polygon mode and we select MB for bridge, we should just be able to go between. Let's have a look, see where we are. Can we do it from here? Maybe not. I don't know whether we need to get a little closer. And just see, it's quite tough when you've got a largish object to actually get MB to work. Let's have a look. So we want to go from probably here down to here if we can. I'll tell you what I'll do. I think the easiest way to do this is to select a polygon on each of them and then do it from there. So let's just get a bit closer. What's happened there? Something looks as if it's gone a bit skew-whiff there. It's not too good, is it? Something's gone awry there. Wait a minute, let's have a look. That's better. Now what I need to do is select that edge polygon, so let's get really close in. It is a fiddly job, so that's just one of those. And then if I go to the other one and do the same thing, just select the same thing on that one. That's the one. I just want that edge polygon, don't I? So let's get a little bit closer if we can. Just want that polygon. Let's make my tool smaller. Select that one. Okay, now we're in a position, I think, to bridge. So let's just see what we can do. Yeah, MB. See if we can bridge between these two. There you go. We want to go from that edge to the outer edge to there. And now just do it if we can. Well, actually that's not correct. What I needed to do, I'll get it right in a minute. I need to select all three of them. That's what I want, all three of them. And then MB. And now it will do it. And now we've got it. Fantastic. So we've got our stretcher rail complete. And that is all looking very nice. If we check that over there. Yeah, that's working perfectly. Fantastic. So we've got our first stretcher rail and we've got it complete, and we can just drop that into stretcher there. So we're going from there down to the bottom. Let's have a look, see where we are. Let's make sure we're in the right place. Right. Okay. So the next thing we need to do, we've got to actually do some work with positioning the subdivision surface and also the axes of our cube here. So let's just do some work here. So go into our front view, hit H so that we can see where we are, and we'll move this into position. It wants to go somewhere there. So look, so it's just we just zoom in close. So this is really important, because if you don't get this right, things won't work out. So that needs to go in the center of there. Let's just get a little bit closer so that we make sure we're exactly right, or near as, damn it. That's okay, that's good. And what I'll do, I'll take the cube out of the subdivision surface, and I'm going to drop the subdivision surface into the cube and zero it out so that that's in the correct place. And then we can put this back in here and this back in here. Go back to our 3D view, and now we've got those two in the same place. One of them is 90 degrees away from the other one. That's the only thing. So let's just zero that out. Oh, we can't actually. I wish you could do that when you were in when you were in axis mode. If you just try messing about in here, it just doesn't work. So what I need to do, I've got that and that, so I just need to turn that through 90 degrees so that it's facing the same way as the subdivision surface, just to be sure that they're both in the same plane. Yeah, now they are. They're both the same. Okay, great. And I've got my stretcher there. That's fine. And my rib over there, and that there, and that there. That's great, because this hierarchy is going to be very important, because the next thing we've got to set up is the IK chain. So what we need to do, we've got our rib here, we've got this here, this here. We need to just drop the stretcher below this cube. And now the IK chain is set up in the right order. So the next thing to do is to give this subdivision surface here the IK tag. So let's just bring that in, rigging tags IK. And what we need to do is, in our tag here, we need to drag this cube into here as the end and add a goal. Now we can see that it's set up correctly. We've got the display line here, so we can see that we've got the chain correctly set up. Now the goal, if we move this, we should find that it works perfectly, and it does. That's great. So ultimately what we will do is drop this into the slide, and then when we move the slide up and down, it should take it with it. We're not in the right mode at the moment. Let's just come off the axis mode. If we just move that up and down, we can see that that's going to work. Okay, brilliant. That's fine. So the next thing we need to do, I'm just going to take this goal out of here for now, and I'm going to place it just here. Or in fact, I'll leave it there, because ultimately I've got to copy all of these ribs, and I need to copy the goals as well, so I'll have to group it into there, but we'll do that in a minute. Right, the next thing to do is actually work with the PoseMorph. Now, in order to do that, in fact, I will just drop that back into the slide. Now, if I move the slide, let's have a look. In fact, what I'll do, before I go any further, I'll work with user data, I think. So I'm going to bring in a null, and also I'm going to bring in two nulls. If I select this slide and option select a null, I can group that into there. Or do I want to do that yet? In fact, I don't. Let's just take that away. What I need to do actually is just zoom out, just getting a bit ahead of myself. If I need to drop this down, if I can take it down, I think somewhere around there, I think that will be a good starting place for us. So if I now bring in a null, so I'll option select a null, and now my slide, if I look in my coordinates, is zeroed out. So that's its ground zero position, it's 0.0. That's fine, that's what we need, because we need it to start from 0, and then I'm going to move it And if I move it until it's around probably 33, in fact I'll set that to 33, I think that's where it needs to be, at its top position. So that's fine, that's really good. So in our null that we brought in earlier, we'll rename this controller. Okay, and then we can start working with user data. So we'll say add user data. I'll call this slide. I'll also bring in a group, take it away from here, drop the slide into it and rename the group control. That will be fine. Now, with our slide here, it will be a float data type, a float slider, a real value for the unit, steps of 0.1 I think will be fine. We'll start at 0, we'll end at 33, and we'll max out the values, just clamp those so we can't go any further, hit OK, and we've got our panel here. So we've got that ready, and it's ready for the next step. We'll be working with that a little bit later. Now, we've got our slide in the correct position, and we've got this set up here. Now what we want, when this rib is at full, well, when the slider is moved up and the rib is fully open, we actually want it to bend, because most umbrellas do, they have a curve in them. So we're going to build that next, and what we're going to do that is basically in our rib here where we've got our cube, we'll give this cube a PoseMorph tag. So give it a PoseMorph, and we'll work with points. This will be our base pose, and we want to set up our pose 0. So what we're going to do, if we switch to our front view and hit object, we can see it here. What I'd like to do actually is probably work with a different camera. Let's just go to our back camera and hit object so that I can work this way. I just prefer it. I don't know why, but I just prefer working this way. So let's switch to point mode, and we can see where our subdivisions are. Now, what we need to do is select with visible only checked off, and we need to work with our various points. Now, if we select these two, in fact, what I need to do is just make this back up to 10. If I select those two, now at the moment our axes are not quite in the right place. What we need to do is with our axes here, we need to say world, and we need to select, or do we need to say world? Let's have a look, see where we are. We need, let's have a look, object. No, object. Yeah, if we work from object, that's fine. World's a little bit too far, we don't need to worry about that. Object is fine. And then what we can do is simply rotate them into position. And we can see that we're starting to get a curve coming in there. That's looking quite nice. We can take it quite high. The next thing we can do is select these, and it's just a case of rinse and repeat, and you've just got to literally tug the points until you get them into the right places and you get the curve that you're looking for. So it's a little bit painstaking, this job, but it's just something that you have to do if you're going to get this right. And it does take a little bit of playing around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on doing this, and then I'll come back to you when I've completed it. I just want to work with these 2 points here and finish this off. If I just grab those two there, and with my axis I'm just going to change it to selected and then rotate them just very slightly, just to put a little bit more curvature into there. That's fine. So we've got a pretty good shape. I mean, if we want to, we can just pull these as a collective, and if we just go back to object and just move them down very slightly, and you can go again. If I'm not being 100% sort of pedantic about this, but you can get this as smooth as you want it. And where you've got these slightly off, if you wish to, you can grab a hold of them and you can move them by changing your axes to selected, and you can just move them so that you just tidy things up slightly, and it just makes the thing just that little bit smoother. You know, but it is a bit of a painstaking job, this part of it, but it's worth doing because the end justifies the means. It's just one of those situations where that's the case. You know, it's just worth taking the trouble to actually do the job. And it really does look quite nice when you get it all sorted out. But anyway, I won't go any further with that. You can see what I'm doing and you can play around with this to your heart's content if you wish to. But we've now got an actual situation where we've got quite a nice curve on our umbrella, and we can see that that's actually going to work quite nicely for us. So if we go into our PoseMorph tag here, we can play around with this and we can see that it's actually going to do the job. Okay, so that's fantastic, and we can then go into animate mode and we can start playing around and trying to take control of this. So how exactly are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use Expresso. That's what we're going to be using. But what we'll do first, I think, is actually make the copies of all of our ribs. So we've got this ready to go. If we just select our rib and with our tools, duplicate, and once again we can just hit apply because it's already set up. So we've got all the things set up. Now let's have a quick look. Have we got these in the right place? I don't think we have at the moment. Let's just undo that. Let's have a quick look, see where we are. Rib, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's go into there, go into there. Right, okay. Let's just go into this, and if we just turn that back to there, just leave it in edit mode for the minute. Now let's have a look, see where we are. It should be okay. I should be able to just duplicate that through there and it should be all right. I think the reason it was a bit off was because I've still got my goal in there. If I just put that back in there, that's where it needs to be. It needs to be part of this hierarchy. So don't leave it in the slide. Make sure you put it in the rib. And now if we do the duplicate, it should be okay. So duplicate, hit apply, and yes, we've got it. Fantastic. So we've got our rib copies down here. What we can do is drop this rib into here. And then what we need to do next is basically start renaming all the goals. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to call it G1, and I'm going to repeat the process for G2, G3, etc. So I'll get all of that done and then I'll come back to you. Just need to do G8. Okay, so those are all renamed, and what I'll do now is select them all. So command select, so that we just get a hold of our goals. Not that one, that's it. Okay, so all of our goals are selected, and now we can grab a hold of G8 and drag them into our slide. And now if we move our slide, we should find that, provided we are not in axis mode, let's just move that and you'll find that everything moves. Fantastic. So that's working perfectly well. Okay, brilliant. So we've got everything up here. Now, if you wish to, we can rename the ribs. I mean, they're .0. I mean, you know, they have been named, but if you wish to, you can just say rib 1, 2, 3, etc. But let's just leave it for what it is. I'll leave that to you, I think, rather than doing that. So I'll just put that back to rib 0. Again, you can do the same with the stretchers if you wish, and do all of that stuff. You can just rename everything and give them numbers so that you can see where they are. But the most important thing really is the goals. But anyway, that's fine. So the next step then is definitely the Expresso, because we want to tie all this together with our user data so that when we move our controller, our slide moves up and down and everything else reacts accordingly, including, of course, our pose morphs. Okay, so we'll bring in a null and call it Expresso. And we'll give it the Expresso tag. And we've got our editor ready and we can start bringing some stuff in. So for the first thing we'll bring in will be the controller, and we'll select our slide output there. We can then bring in the slide itself. So let's just do that. Grab a hold of this, bring it in here and give it a position Y at the input stage and connect the two. Okay, and we're there. And if we select our controller, we should find that if we move it, we're getting exactly what we want. So that's making all of that function correctly. Now, the thing we're not getting at the moment though is the PoseMorph, and we need to sort that out. So for a start, let's go into our PoseMorph tag. Now, at the moment it's in edit mode, we need it in animate, and we need all of them. So we'll make sure that we select all of these and put them in animate mode, lest we forget and get some problems. So we'll select those and put them in animate, and they're ready to go. But the first thing we're going to do is just bring in our tag here. And at the input stage, we'll give it pose strength 0. Now, to make this work, we need a range mapper. So we'll bring one of those in, come down to calculate, get a range mapper, and we can take the output from our controller, plug it into the input, and then down here in our input lower, we know that we're ranging from 0 to 33 because that's the distance our slide actually travels. And at the output stage, we do need 0 to 1. So this is set up perfectly well for us. If we plug that into there, we now find straight away that we get the PoseMorph working. And if we play around with the controller, bring this down, we can see that the rib is straight when it's lowered. And as it raises, it begins to bend and it gets to its final position. So that's working as it should. At the moment, we've only got the one working because we need to somehow work with all of our PoseMorphs at the same time. Well, in order to do that, that's quite simple. We just need to bring in an iteration for a start. So we'll bring one of those in. It needs an end state of 7 because we've got 8 ribs. And then we need to bring in a link list. So we'll grab a hold of one of those, plumb the output of the iteration into the index port, and then we can populate our link list with the remaining, well, in fact with all of our PoseMorph tags. So we'll get this one, this one, this one. Where are we? I've done the first 3, I've now 1, 2, 3. There is this one, this one, this one, this one, and finally this one. So we've got 8 PoseMorph tags in there, and now what we can simply do is add an object port to our PoseMorph here and then connect our link list. And straight away we can see that every one of our ribs is now bending into its final pose. Fantastic. So let's have a go with our controller, and we can see that we're getting the result that we desire. Fabulous. So it all works. That's really beautiful. So we've completed what we've set out to do in this particular tutorial, and it all works really nicely. It is a bit fiddly and it's been quite a long tutorial because there's been quite a lot to show you, but it's all important stuff. There's nothing I've shown you here that isn't useful to know. But this is the actual method for doing this if you want this to work properly. So, you know, there are certain steps of it that do take a little bit of work, but, you know, that's 3D. Sometimes you do need to take time over things in order to make them behave the way you want them to. But anyway, we've got it to that stage. So that completes the first part of this series. Now in part 2, it'll be dynamics all the way. It's cloth. We're going to be using dynamic colliders, cloth belts. You know, it's all dynamics and dynamic cloth, as I say, from there onwards. And I'll show you the definitive technique for actually making this work and behave exactly like it would if it was a real umbrella. Okay, fantastic. So I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial as always, and that it's given you some ideas for some techniques that you can perhaps incorporate into your own projects. And if you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and of course leave a comment and ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, please do share this video, because all this good stuff really does help keep the channel moving in the right direction. But anyway, that just about brings the curtain down on this one, so I'll see you very soon in part 2.